Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting for the live stream. Can I confirm the live stream is ready? Thanks very much, Will. So good evening, councillors, colleagues, and welcome to this full council meeting. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny manager to update you on the systems being used and to confirm that officers in remote attendance are present.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with a roll call of the officers attending remotely. If you could just confirm that we can hear you and that you can be heard. And in no particular order, Jeanette Thompson.
Good evening, present. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Cooper.
Good evening. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Anthony Roche.
Good evening.
Thank you. And Richard Beasley.
Good evening. Yes, I'm present.
Thank you very much. This meeting is being audio recorded and filmed and live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. The recordings will be available to view on the Council's website and YouTube channels after the meeting has ended. If members wish to speak, they should use the speak button located on your microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can be heard by the recording. The normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. Speeches should not exceed 5 minutes without the permission of the chair. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start? Thank you very much. Back to you, Councillor North.
Thank you very much, Will. So we will move on to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. So I've received apologies for absence from the following councillors: Councillor Nigel Mason, Chris Lucas, Lisa Nash, Judy Billing, Sam Collins, Tom Plater, and Michael Weeks. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Bloxham.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Muir. Yeah, Councillor Frost.
Morris.
Councillor Morris. I've got my right-hand man on this.
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Oh,
Thank
Barnard.
you. Oh, and yeah, Councillor Barnard. It's all coming together.
Thank you very much. Have we noted those apologies? Thank you very much. So agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting on the 26th of May 2022. Can I please have a seconder? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments at all on the minutes? If not, can we please go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Agenda item 3, notification of any other business. I have received none. Moving on to Chair's announcements. The first announcement that I would like to make is that it is with great sadness that we remember former councillor Gary Grindle, who sadly passed away on Thursday, the 26th of May. Gary served as a district councillor for 26 years, between 1996 and 2022. He was a ward member for Letchworth Wilbury and served on the cabinet as executive member for housing and environmental health from 2019 to 2022. He sat on many committees throughout his time at North Herts Council and is very fondly remembered by his colleagues, friends, and family. Would members please join me in a moment of commemoration for Gary? Would any member like to speak on this? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Not wanting to be repeating myself too much over the last few weeks, but Gary was a person whose personality could fill a room, and the lack of ego meant he always had time and space for the people who needed it. Myself, Councillor Judy Billing, and former Councillor Deepak Sangha all had the great honour of being invited to speak at Gary's funeral. And I've been talking a lot, but Deepak, I believe, spoke for many when he so beautifully said, "Stood here today, I'm at a loss for words, but my heart is full of feelings." Judy, as well as speaking so warmly to Tracy and the boys, mentioned how Gary wasn't honestly a fan of council meetings, and that rather conveniently, Tracy always managed to book a family holiday around the time of a particularly boring one. Her words. Gary's beautifully balanced life of family, work, politics was clear in the abundance of love and unspent love felt at his funeral from and for his family and friends. Jordan, Christian, and Reese, who very kindly lent us the slideshow we've just seen, would love to hear stories about their dad on the council, because he didn't bore them with that kind of stuff, apparently. In exchange, for want of a better term, we now know that Gary was once, I'm told thankfully, apparently only briefly, was in a band. Did anyone else know he was in a band? No, right. I doubt there is a single person who hasn't been helped knowingly or unknowingly by Gary's work and dedication. And in the rough and tumble of politics, he was always one of the good guys. He was a big-hearted man, generous with his time, gave himself to his family, his friends, and his community. I know I speak for us all when I say we're going to miss him so much.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Strong.
Thank you very much. I would just like to say again, a very sad loss for the council to lose Gary, because he'd served this council so well and for his ward. In fact, Gary arrived at the council the year after I had been elected. And so for many first few years, we were kind of the newbies together. But I have fond memories of Gary, of the meetings that we did participate in together. And I have to say, he did have a great sense of humour, which we often would hear when we were out of the council chamber and we were in the committee room on having a sort of an after full council, where probably some of the good chit chat was done between councillors. I'm sure the Labour group will be missing him, but I'm certainly from this side, we were also missing him, because we know that he was such a dedicated councillor to the Letchworth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Strong. Is there anyone else who wishes to say anything? If not, I wanted to say that I too attended Gary's funeral, and while it was clear that he worked hard for the residents, the number of people and lives that he touched was enormous, and it is one of the biggest funerals, or the highest number of people attending a funeral that I have ever seen. So he will be sorely missed, not only by this council, but by many in the community, his friends and his family. Thank you. Moving on to the next announcement is the climate emergency. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency. This is a serious decision and means that, as this is an emergency, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. Declarations of interests. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcement on the agenda. Councillor Terry Tyler served as Chair of Council during the civic year 2019-2020, a year unlike any other due to the disruption and loss caused by the pandemic. This council has already placed on record its sincere thanks and appreciation for his work. Due to scheduling issues, however, and member availability, Councillor Tyler has not yet been presented with his gift. hence the presentation being made tonight. As a token of appreciation, on behalf of both past and present members, we would like to present you, Terry, with the gift which we have placed on your desk, and hope that you will stay after the meeting for a few photographs. Councillor Tyler.
Thank you very much. And it's great to see the prize. I'm very grateful for it. And thank you all for your support during our COVID times when we're on Zoom and things like that. Okay, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. The next agenda item relates to an announcement that I made at the previous council meeting. You will recall that at the previous council meeting, I announced 2 charities that I would be supporting throughout my time in office. I've chosen Hearts Welcomes Refugees as one of those charities to fundraise for during the civic year. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Irene Austin from the charity, who is with us tonight, and I would like to invite her to give a short presentation to explain the work that they do in the district. I have then allowed 5 minutes for any questions that members may have. So Irene.
Thank you very much. Basically, we started as a charity to really support the Syrian Vulnerable Person Scheme, which you will all remember the terrible times that families had, and there was a resettlement program, and our charity lobbied and then started to support the families who arrived under that scheme in about 2016 they started. But our scope widened and by about 2019 we were a charity, and then we were supporting so many different other charities, because initially we were called Hearts Welcome Syrian Families. It was much more than just Syrian families. So we then changed our names to, we were getting families from Iran, Iraq, Sudan, many other countries, and we became Hearts Welcomes Refugees. Also, our scope has widened incredibly. As the numbers grew, we are basically a volunteer-led organisation. We have one paid post who's a volunteer coordinator, because we have in the region of 90 volunteers, and we are supporting over the county maybe over 500 individuals. So it's quite a large county and quite a large area. And North Hearts, you have an area convener called Veronica Raymond, who was going to be here tonight but is unable to. So I said our scope widened. We started now, can you just do the next slide? Yeah, and those are our aims: to welcome and support refugees and asylum seekers in Hertfordshire. I'll do the next one, but we'll hold on the next one. I'll come to that in a moment. I talked about asylum seekers. I don't know if you're aware, but there are 5 hotels in Hertfordshire housing in the region of 400 asylum seekers. One in Markgate, one in Decorah, one in St Albans, one in Welling, and one in Boreham Wood. Not in this area. They talked about Stevenage, but it never happened. We are supporting 2 of those in the region of about 250 to nearly 200 people. We're supporting Decorah and Welling Garden City. Last year, you'll remember the Afghan situation, yeah? Another where people, we had arriving in Hertfordshire, 400 Afghans who were placed in hotels. There were 3 hotels housing 400 people. There are now two hotels, one in Decorah and one in Watford, but we are still, all this time, they were meant to be in these hotels for 2 weeks and then into the community, resettled, hasn't happened. We see these hotels being there for maybe another year. We are supporting the one in Decorah. So that's about 100 people. So basically, what do we do? What we do is we work with local authorities. Now, North Herts has been very welcoming. It has the largest cohort of resettled families who come under the resettlement scheme. So you've got 10 Syrian families, you've got 2 Afghan families, yeah? So it's the largest. I think St. Albans followed in numbers, but you have a much younger population in the resettled families with a lot of children. I think we had 6 babies born to the resettled families. So, and the families are taking time to settle. So we provide basically, we have a befriender and a language support network. That's the key of our organisation. Yeah. So we very much support the learning of English. And I'm sad to say that the provision in North Herts and Stevenage for language and ESOL has English for speakers of other language has been not brilliant. So we've had to back that up quite a lot. So, you know, we befriend, we support with learning English, and we're also supporting the children in their school learning. Parents are becoming quite worried, and, you know, in COVID, you know, the children did lose out, unfortunately. So we have volunteers who are primary teachers. We do not pay any volunteer. We don't pay for any teaching that goes on. It's supporting what should be happening in school. So we also, we listen to the needs of the refugees as they change. And one of the things they said is, please, can you help our children? Which is why we then recruited a cohort of volunteers to support their children. So basically, if they need extra goods, right, you can see we provide extra goods. We've got a bike scheme, and we support refugees who want to drive. So we do social events on the next slide. Yeah, social events, and again, and activities are some of the things. We support study and leisure. Next slide. And we've had author talks in a library and a book donation. And the next slide. And we listened, the last AGM we had in person was 2019. Now, Sam asked me what we needed from, you know, he said as a charity. What we really need is support for our area conveners. So we want to build up volunteers for one person to support all the families in this area, although we're not the main caseworker. The Refugee Council do that, but they don't support all the families. And as people come into the area as well, if they're asylum seekers, we need to support them, and that support is very different. So we need volunteers. We need also premises to hold events. I mean, you know, we've held, I think she did an event at Grange Community Centre, so premises, help with transport, to bring people together. That's what we need really from you.
Thank you very much, Irene. I'm very sorry to rush you. Unfortunately, we are very time limited in what we can say, but thank you so much, Irene, for coming along. Did any members have any questions for Irene? If not, thank you very much, Irene, for coming along today. If Abigail could help to show her out, and we will move on.
Email me and email Sam, and I, you know, sort of. So basically, we're a very active charity with basically a volunteer-based charity. No pay. Well, a volunteer coordinator who's managing. One person's managing something like 70 volunteers, so it's quite a big task.
Thank you very much, Irene. We'll now move on to the additional council meeting. An additional council meeting is required on the 19th of December to enable the council to consider the consultation response once the Local Government Boundary Commission for England has published its draft recommendations for new electoral arrangements, number of wards, number of councillors representing each ward, ward names, and ward boundaries. Rules of debate. Please can I remind you that the normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. No speeches may be made after the mover has moved a proposal and explain the purpose of it until the motion has been seconded. When seconding a motion or amendment, a member may reserve their speech until later in the debate. You may only speak once on a motion and once on any amendment. In accordance with Constitution, please can members ensure that no speech exceeds 5 minutes without my consent. I would also like Council to note that the referral made at Southern Rural Committee on the 30th of June 2022 regarding the GP surgery in Kimpton will be considered at the next ordinary meeting of the Council due to new information being received that could have a material impact on any potential discussion. Agenda item 5, public participation. We have one question submitted by a member of the public in accordance with Standing Order 4.8.10a, which has been circulated with the agenda. I would like to welcome Deolinda Eltringham to this meeting and invite you to present your question.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to put my question to you. The question is being addressed in particular to Councillor Sean Pendergast, who I'm told is the Executive Member for Housing and Environment and Health. And I ask, is there a reason why so many air quality monitoring stations are not being used in North Herts District Council area? I see that Baldock 1, Baldock 2, Baldock Roadside, Bridgewood, Green, Hitchin Library, and Royston. All of these are still showing as closed and no results available on the All Hearts and Beds air quality data from the local air monitoring stations. And we will never know just how the full picture of how bad the true air quality problem is until we monitor widely and quantify the real problem.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eltringham. Councillor Prendergast, can I invite you to respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for attending tonight, Ms. Eltringham, for your question. Thank you. Some members and indeed residents in our community may not be aware that all local authorities have a statutory duty to monitor and assess local air quality. In terms of strategy for air quality monitoring and assessment, the local authority is required to continually monitor and assess local air quality across the district. What this means in practice is that in time we build up a picture of where air pollution hotspots are located, usually near busy road junctions or roads with congested traffic, meaning that we as a local authority concentrate our monitoring resources in locations that represent those hotspots. Part of the process of continuing to review local air quality is to build up a picture across the district of where air pollution levels are highest and within margins approaching or in exceedance of statutory air quality objectives. From the data collected, there is no evidence that pollution levels at these locations are approaching or near air pollution objective levels, and decisions have been made in the past to concentrate monitoring resources on areas where pollution levels are higher or may approach objective levels. Just to give some examples, for example, results from the continuous monitoring in the Hitchin Stevenage Road air quality management areas have reduced from 50 micrograms per metre cubed in 2016 to 37 micrograms per metre cubed in 2020, where the objective is 40. These locations have been shown as locations with no significant risk of increased pollution levels. The regulations make it clear that local authorities are expected to monitor where air pollution levels are at or likely to exceed the government's stated threshold limits. The sites mentioned were recorded as being and still are significantly below objective levels and in line with government policy on best value. These sites were made redundant at least 7 years ago. Members of this council will be aware that the Joint Administration declared a climate emergency in May 2019. And since then, we have already actioned the introduction of subsidised licence fees for Hackney carriages and private hire vehicles that use clean fuel, the continued replacement of council vehicles with ultra-low or zero-emission vehicles, commissioned the Hearts Energy Advice Tool app to help residents increase energy efficiency in their homes, the conversion of floodlighting on Norton Common in Letchworth from halogen to LED lighting, which will cut energy use by over 50%, launched a plastic-free North Hearts campaign and helped promote businesses in the district who have achieved a plastic-free status. Of course, this is just a snapshot of what we've achieved so far, and we will continue to work with community groups and residents to further improve the environment of our district. However, we must acknowledge that the reality of air pollution is a real problem that exists everywhere, including in this district. And we will continue to take bold steps to create a healthy environment for our children and vulnerable members of our community. We must look at further measures to improve air quality, such as the possibility of no idling areas, working towards a better cycle network in the district, more electrical charging points. The list can go on. We are still actively working with Hearts County Council and others to try and encourage more people to take up electric vehicles, and we need to encourage the County Council to review and address traffic congestion hotspots so that this too can potentially help to reduce traffic air pollution. Be assured that we will continue to actively explore opportunities to help solve the climate emergency. Air pollution is not inevitable. Any reductions in air pollution that we make will lead to health improvements for us all. If we all do our bit, we can have cleaner air.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Ms Eltringham, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Prendergast?
If I may, please.
You may.
Councillor, you mentioned that the air quality had improved considerably from when it was started to be collected to the value that was read in 2020. And I'd like to add that due to COVID restrictions, in the last 2 years, there have been a significant reduction of traffic levels across the UK. Air pollution measurements taken in the years of 2020, and I would say in 2021, when they are available, are aberrations from historical norms. The UK government's website warns against the use of such data. To do so would be unreasonable and unethical. The UK government traffic reporting shows the significant drop off in 2020 that is clearly not consistent with the normal trends. And the site warns, the government site actually warns us, it says, whilst historical significant, the long-term trends can be misleading and not in most cases due to the extraordinary circumstances observed as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Vehicle miles travelled in Great Britain have had year-on-year growth in each year between 2010 and 2019. And however, the sharp decrease in 2020 has resulted in traffic estimates that are lower than those of 2010 themselves. Therefore, to say that traffic has fallen over
Ms.
the last decade—
could I ask you please to get to your supplementary question?
Would misconstrue, and as the overall decrease is entirely due to the decline in traffic due to the pandemic. I would like to ask, it actually goes on to say that we should see the value, the measurements of air pollution in 2020 as a target of what could be possible should we be able to reduce the traffic. But my question is, would the council consider to review of where its monitoring stations are placed and increase the number across the areas of greater traffic, or actually houses where they burn fossil fuel for heating?
Thank you, Ms. Eltringham. If Councillor Prendergast, you'd like to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up question. The answer is yes, they get reviewed on an annual basis. So my initial answer kind of answers that question. So it gets reviewed on an annual basis, and it's all based on the hotspot areas and the resources available. So if the hotspots show that there's more air pollution, then they can get reviewed, and then the monitoring stations can change. Does that make sense? So essentially, yes, it gets reviewed on an annual basis as to where the hotspots are. And I think there was a second part to your question as well, which I think I missed.
Ms. Eltringham, if you can come back, but please only ask, repeat the question itself.
Sorry.
It was about would you review where these air quality monitoring stations are, and sorry, I kind of adjusted my question, but the idea is to put them in areas because.
Ms. Eltringham, I think you've asked your question. I'm going to pass back to Councillor Prendergast to answer. Thank you.
I think I may have already answered that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Ms. Eltringham, thank you very much for coming along tonight. I personally think it's great that members of the public asking questions. You're welcome to leave. You're welcome to stay. If you do choose to leave, I would ask Abigail again to show you out. Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item 6, which is question from members. There are none. Agenda item 7, notice of motions. There are none. Agenda item 8, warding arrangement submission to the Local Government Boundary Commission for England. Dear Linda, could I ask please that you don't disturb councillors on your exit? Thank you. No problem. No problem. Agenda item 8. Members are advised that Richard Beasley, the consultant assisting the council with this submission, is joining us via Zoom and available to take questions. I will now pass over to Melanie Stimpson to present.
Thank you, Chair. The first stage of the electoral review of North Herts Council by the Local Government Boundary Commission for England was the determination of council size, so the number of district councillors to represent North Herts Council from May 24, and this stage has now been completed. The next stage of the review is the current public consultation by the Commission regarding warding arrangements, and this council, as a statutory consultee and interested party, is invited to submit a proposal. As part of this process, the Commission invites submissions regarding possible warding arrangements from a range of stakeholders through a public consultation, and this includes the council, elected representatives, political parties, parish, town and community councils, and the public. As such, if this council does not make a submission or fails to make a coherent case, the Commission will base its recommendations of warding configurations for this council on other submissions they receive, as well as their internal analytical work. The ward arrangements as set out in the attached appendices have been proposed following consultation amongst group leaders at the Boundary Review Project Board, taking into account the feedback from the recent member workshop and subsequent further engagement, local communities, the Commission criteria for warding arrangements, and the need to ensure electoral equality. Appendix A is the proposed submission on warding arrangements relating to the rural wards, Baldock, Hitchin and Royston, which takes the statutory criteria into account. And based on the feedback received, there appears to be a broad support for these elements of the submission, and therefore members are invited to read, note and approve this submission. Appendices B and C are the proposed submission and warding arrangements relating to Letchworth, and there are 2 options for members to consider and decide which option should be approved. Based on the feedback received, there appears to be different views as to which of these 2 options best meets the Commission's criteria, and therefore members are asked to choose between the 2 options. A point to note regarding the council size is that 50 members was approved in January and previously submitted to the Commission for those reasons included within paragraph 8.6 of this report. The Commission agreed with that size, with the possibility of flexing up or down by 1 or 2 councillors if required, if that better meets the statutory criteria. So whilst drafting the warding arrangements and incorporating wherever possible suggestions made by local ward members, it has been necessary to increase the council size by an additional councillor to 51. A significant amount of work was undertaken to produce proposals based on 50 councillors. However, it was not possible to find an alternative that ensured the warding arrangements reflect the interests and identities of local communities and are not dividing communities. This is further explained within the submission Appendix A. However, it's ultimately the Commission that will decide on the number of councillors and warding arrangements, and therefore could resolve a different number of councillors. And the council needs to agree the submission of by the required deadline of the 10th of August. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Councillor Munster, I see you put is this a point of order? Yeah, that's fine.
Just a point of order, Chair. Is it an order that we vote on the rest of North Hertfordshire and then have the possibility that Letchworth is left off the submission? I'm just wondering, surely it's all or nothing in this instance.
You are ahead of me, Councillor Munster. I am about to go through a very wordy paragraph on how we're going to do this. So thank you for raising that. What I am about to say is not frequently said. So listen very carefully. I will say this only once. To allow all members the opportunity to debate all options in the report before proposing, seconding, or making amendments and voting, I am going to propose that we suspend the standing order requirement 4.8.14a, so members will be able to make speeches, debate, or both, before someone proposes or seconds the recommendations at this stage for this item only. If this is passed, I then intend to take the debate and speeches in order of the recommendations, taking 1, 2, and 3 separately. Speeches will still be restricted to 5 minutes each, and the normal rules will apply. Members may speak only once per item. I will then look for proposer and seconder for recommendation 1, then 2 or 3, and will follow the normal voting process. So firstly, can I have a seconder for the motion to suspend standing order 4.8.14a for the duration of this item, agenda item 8? Councillor Allen.
I'm happy to propose.
I propose, Councillor Allen. So
you propose, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Before I go to the debate, go to the vote, is there any debate? And I am happy to take any questions if people are unclear. No, perfect. We will go to the vote on that then, please, Will.
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. We now enter uncharted territories, and I would like to open debate on recommendation 1. So would any member like to speak? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will start. I'm aware that we might be considering some amendments as well as part of this, but I am very happy to propose the first part of this report, and I'd like to place on record this council's thanks to Richard Beasley as well for the incredible hard work that he's put in over the months, helping us move things forward. I think, colleagues, that the item that we've got before us, by and large, is the best that we're able to achieve for the parished areas, for Royston, for Baldock, and on the whole, subject to what others might say, also for Hitchin. I think we've managed to maintain community cohesion. We've managed to do a very difficult numbers balancing game as well in an area that is quite dense, with some clearly identifiable communities and other communities that, you know, tend to sort of slip between cracks or fall over boundary lines. And we are hopefully in this submission able to right some of the community splits that have occurred in previous reviews. So I'm very happy to be proposing this. And again, thank you very much, Richard, for your hard work on this, and also Mel as well, who's been most tolerant in our project board meetings.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wanting to debate or speak on item 1? Councillor Keith Hoskins.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to echo thanks to everybody who's worked so hard on this. I am at odds, I'm afraid, with what's suggested. Under the original electoral review document that came out for us to look at and discuss, there were 2 options for Hitchin Priory and Hitchin Highbury. Just as a reminder, one was for a single member ward and one was for a 2-member ward. So 2 2-member wards, in fact, Priory and Highbury 2 members each, rather than Priory 1 member, Highbury 3 members. The consultant, I think, believed that option 1 better responds to the statutory criteria. I believe that option 2 better responds to the community criteria. So we have a difference of opinion on that. So I can't support this proposal with that extent.
Councillor Hoskins, you may propose an amendment.
Thank you. Then I shall. I didn't know if this was quite the right point to do it, given the suspension of various orders. My amendment to that, therefore, would be that the option for Hitchin Priory and Hitchin Highbury should be option 2, as stated in the electoral review document. And just to spell that out, the boundary line between Hitchin Priory and Hitchin Highbury follows the B656 Queen Street. This creates 2 2-member wards. So rather than Highbury ward having 7,000 electors plus with 3 members and Priory having a couple of thousand with 1 member, I'm suggesting that we can look at this and make it more equitable, and so there are 2 members in each ward. So the amendment is that we are option 2 on the electoral review document for 2 2-member wards rather than a 3-member ward and a 1-member ward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoskins, for proposing that amendment. There is, as I've said, no need at the moment for someone to second and therefore go into debate specifically on that amendment, but I welcome any conversation or speeches on the proposal that has been made in addition. Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to talk against the amendment for the simple reason I'm not a Hitchin member, but I will speak to the Royston suggestions. Now, firstly, can I say, I had hoped we'd see some better maps. The maps that have been forthcoming have been absolutely awful. And I know I've got bad eyesight, but my God, it's been difficult to work out where the lines go and expand them to a point where you can understand them. I think I'm pleased that we've managed to retain the names of Meridian and Palace in the proposals. But I do note, I'm not 100% certain that Meridian, the Greenwich Meridian actually starts in 1 ward and then goes into Meridian. It's difficult to tell from the map where it actually starts, whether it's one side of the Newmarket Road or the other. One thing I do note, though, that the Palace of King James is actually sitting in the Meridian ward and not in the Palace ward, which is unfortunate because it's only a small area that could have been amended. On a personal note, 6 councillors for district at Royston is more than sufficient. In fact, I think it's too many, and going to 7 seems to be an even bigger step in the wrong direction when you consider the amount of residents a county councillor has to deal with, and also an MP has to deal with as a single individual. But I realise this is a game of crunching numbers, and that's what's happening at the moment. So we have to live with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Munzer.
Thank you very much, Chair. One is very disappointed with the contents of this proposal. I think in rural communities in particular, the only information which actually has been taken into account when drafting this proposal is the proposed electorate and not the views of local residents and communities. North Hertfordshire is not a natural or historic district like St Albans. Rather, it is a creation of the Local Government Act of 1972. And therefore, one would argue that it is even more important that this authority and the Local Government Boundary Commission take into account the views of communities within our district, ensuring they're properly represented in the future. I welcome the fact that the Boundary Commission is holding a public consultation to ensure, and I quote, that its proposals reflect community ties and identities. And I encourage members of the public to have their say before the deadline on the 9th of August. I'm sure we'll all agree here that local government is about serving your community, being closer to the community and the people you are elected to represent. In my opinion, the proposal doesn't support this principle, nor does it support the legislative criteria of ensuring that the interests and identities of local communities are taken into account and represented in a submission. It is important to highlight that rural communities have very distinct characters and identities. No two hamlet or village is the same, a fact that residents are very proud of. The best way to ensure that the interests of our rural communities are suitably represented would be to make single-member wards the default position in these areas. Whilst I acknowledge that this will not always be possible due to the legislative criteria, it is an option that I strongly urge the Boundary Commission to investigate, and I believe it would reinvigorate our local democracy, provide for more effective accountability, and safeguard the interests and identities of local communities. I cannot vote for something which, in my opinion, will have a negative impact on the representation of residents, not just in Kimpton, but of the other areas of North Hertfordshire, and I would urge colleagues to reject these proposals.
Thank you very much, Councillor Munzer. I've just been asked to clarify that anybody who has any form of interest in the local politics of North Hertfordshire is welcome to have their say on the submissions that are being made, but absolutely agree with your point that it is really important that local people also have their say. Councillor Albert.
First of all, question to the chair, just so you can advise us, because clearly there may be some people here this evening that are not content with the arrangement set out in option 1. Option 1 covers rural wards, Baldock, Hitchin and Royston. There is a danger here that, you know what I'm going to ask, is that actually we could find that it may be, as Councillor Munzer has set out, that the rural wards are the issue, but people are content with the arrangements in Royston, Baldock and Hitchin. And that does seem a little odd in actually condensing all of these into one single proposal. So I'm really seeking the advice through you, Chair, as to whether effectively that we are going to be voting on this as one proposal, where there are in fact 4 there proposals for 4 different arrangements. What I was mainly wanted to talk about was really to support, I think, what Councillor Hoskins said, and when it comes to it, to obviously say I'd be happy to second his proposal. I mean, I do have concerns around that Hitchin will be reducing from 13 to 12 councillors, which personally I think is quite counterintuitive. But I mean, I recognise, as Councillor Hunter said, it's probably a matter of some number crunching here is where we end up. But I do think what Councillor Hoskins has set out, you know, on reflection, and I'm thinking about listening to his what he said this evening, this does seem to me a rather better arrangement. And also, actually, I think reflecting the points that, for example, that Councillor Munter made about different communities, actually reflects rather better the parts of the town centre in Hitchin, where actually I think actually having each of the wards having at least 2 councillors representing some of the town centre areas does actually, to me, make a logical sense. Hence the reason I'd really like to support Councillor Hoskins' amendment, and happy to second that, Chair, when you ask for formal seconders.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. During your speech, you asked a question, and I'd like to call on Jeanette Thompson to see if she is happy or able to answer the question. Jeanette, if you need the question to be re-asked, then I'm happy to ask Councillor Albert to repeat his question.
Sorry, I'm just waiting for the picture to come up, Chair. I'm not really sure it's one for me to explain. I suppose more to do with our consultant, Richard or Melanie, is the realities of trying to prize out individual elements of the first recommendation, which obviously in the round take a number of factors into account. So I think it would be quite difficult, although I don't want to answer for our consultant, who obviously has quite a lot of experience in how the Boundary Commission will respond if we do that, whether we can do that ultimately, and the timelines for us being able to do that.
Thank you, Jeanette. In that case, I will bring in Mr. Beasley, please.
Thank you. Good evening. This council has been invited to make a submission by the Local Government Boundary Commission for England. If the council is unable or for whatever reason not in a position to make a submission covering all wards, then that is the decision of the council. It's normal practice to make a final submission covering all wards that covers the entire district. But if that can't be achieved, then whatever is agreed upon can be submitted as one submission and everything else left out. However, as I think was outlined earlier on, if you do that, then the warding arrangements that are determined by the Commission will be based on whatever anyone else puts in. And your opportunity to influence those decisions will have been lost until the next round of consultation. So my professional recommendation would be to do everything in your power collectively to come to a decision and agreement that you can all agree to and stand behind when you make a submission, because that will make a much stronger and more coherent case from the council going into the Commission in the final submission.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Are you satisfied that's answered your question, Councillor Albert?
No. Because the question, I suppose the question is, Richard, is that effectively what I don't want to see happen here this evening and Councillor Munter makes some important points. I probably don't necessarily fully agree with them, and some of them are not actually practical for as he says himself, around the one member aspect. But what I wouldn't want to do is for folk to take Councillor Munter's advice and vote against the proposals in that first option, in which case we'd not only lose those proposals, we'd lose the ones for Baldock, Hitchin and Royston as well. So that's my concern, is that there is a danger of doing that, and whether it would be better to actually separate out those 4 things. Are we happy with the rural wards? Are we happy with the Baldock proposal, the Hitchin proposals and the Royston proposals, much in the same way we've separated out Letchworth into 2 options?
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Mr. Beasley, is that possible for the meeting this evening? And could you give a response to Councillor Albert, please?
From my perspective, it's not an issue. In reality, it comes down to a decision for you, Chair, and for the Council as a whole as to whether you'd like to split this into sections. If I may just mention, though, that Councillor Munter asked about single member wards, just to reassure him and other members of the Council, we did look at every possible combination of parishes and communities, including looking at single member wards. And as Councillor Munson suggested, actually, it's not possible in the vast majority of areas, which is why you've ended up with the configuration that's been proposed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beasley. In response, I suppose, to the question from me, Councillor Albert, we will continue on with the conversation on recommendation 1. Once we have gone through the conversation on recommendation 1, I will then put to everyone the potential of splitting out the areas into different bits, and we will see what happens when we get to that stage. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm rather surprised and rather disappointed by Councillor Muntz's some of his remarks, because the project board has been working for some months with our able consultant helping us, and Melanie also has worked very hard on this. And we have sought to engage members as much as we can. Now, we could maybe have engaged them a little earlier, but everyone has had a chance to comment. And I sincerely hope that tonight we can come to an agreement, because I believe that if we come to a cross-party agreement and about the submission, it will have a much greater weight with the Boundary Commission, as our consultant has advised us, and we are much more likely to get something that reflects our communities. So a lot of things have been discussed. Obviously, there are a lot of criteria that have to be balanced. And so just to come to some specific things, Councillor Hunter mentioned Royston. You mentioned that you'd rather stick with 6 councillors. That was raised during the project review board, whether that could be the case. And our consultant advised us that we would be outside the variances, so we had to go to 7. So that wasn't a possibility. Regarding the Meridian line runs north-south through Royston, through Meridian School. It goes towards the end of the Newmarket Road on the east of Royston. You may have noticed there's a little sign that says Meridian line. So in actual fact, it runs through Royston Meridian Ward, Royston Burlows Ward, and Royston Heath Ward in a north to south direction. Sorry? Oh, it doesn't go through Heath. I've just been corrected. Sorry. Palace is indeed not in the Palace ward. I was well aware of that when I proposed the name Palace, but like you, and I think we agreed on this, Councillor Hunter, I think it's nice to call it Palace. And it contains many of the areas that were previously in the Royston Palace ward. And then just, so on the Hitchin, I would like to defer to the Hitchin councillors on this, and I believe there is some broad agreement around Hitchin Highbury and Hitchin Priory that two member wards would better reflect the communities. So I'm in support of that proposal. And just lastly on Royston, during the briefings, Councillor Hunter made a comment about the shape of the wards looking like a crow's head, and I think that's rather splendid. Actually, it looks like a hooded crow, which is the mascot for Royston. So, on that rather lighter note, I really do hope we can come to an agreement where we all support these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I just wanted to mention that I'm very keen we stick to the consideration of the recommendations that we have in front of us, and not discuss things that have been mentioned in previous meetings relating to concerns over how we have the process has been run. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that Councillor Albert from Hitchin wants more councillors in Hitchin, and Councillor Hunter from Royston wants fewer councillors in Royston. But actually, that's not the issue that we're talking about. I mean, I do have some sympathy with Councillor Hunter's view that there may be too many councillors, but that was a debate we had some time ago. We decided what the number we wanted was. If it had been up to me, it would have been fewer, but the consensus of the council was we wanted 50. And we've now discovered it doesn't divide up quite right, so it has to be 51. But we're beyond that point. We're in a process where the rules have decided that we each have to represent approximately the same number of people. And there is quite a powerful argument why that should be the case, as well as having to reflect community interest. And I wouldn't want the council to get the view that all of the rural area is dissatisfied because Councillor Munster is, or indeed that all of the rural area doesn't have single member wards. And I do agree with Councillor Munster that in rural areas, single member wards are really a nice objective. I think the problem is that Councillor Munster represents a community that is not the right size to fit the government's criteria. And the only option therefore is to put it with something else or to split it in half. Perhaps we wouldn't set the same criteria as the Boundary Commission if we were responsible for the entire process. But it seems to me that we have to come up with the best compromise we can within the rules that exist. And I'm very clear that the council should make a representation and it should make a submission that covers the entire district. Now, if there are alternative views, either from individual members or groups or whatever, they're perfectly at liberty to put those in. But I think that as a council, it would be foolish of us not to set out how we think the district ought to be represented and to do that in a way that meets the criteria. Now, I don't think that we should be working like this at all. I think we should have multi-member seats with some sort of proportional representation system. That's how I'd like it to be. But I recognise that that's not the set of rules that we're working in. We have to work within the rules we're given. We have to do the best we can within those rules, and saying we don't like it, so we're not playing is not an acceptable way forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jarvis. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. Been listening to what Councillor Albert, Munster, Hoskins and Jarvis has been saying, and this is a submission on behalf of the council with a big C. That is the 49 elected members. This submission will be made on that behalf of those people and the council as a whole. There's obviously some people here who don't agree with the arrangements from here, and I appreciate all the hard work and everything that's gone to it from the office and the consultants. But I don't think that we're going, the only way it would be a really valid submission from the council if it was everybody supported it. It was a unanimous decision, and that represents the council's view. There are people here who obviously at the moment don't agree with the recommendations within this, and it cannot be a unanimous council view. Yes, you have the ability to make your own representation as an individual, as a political party, or as a politically led individual. But that would be going against the council's view, which this council will make tonight. And for that reason, I can't support the recommendations, particularly one. And when we do come to the vote eventually on this, Chair, I would ask that in order that it's made very clear that some of those members don't agree or may not agree with this being the view of the council as a whole, that that would be a recorded vote, please, Chairman.
Thanks very much, Councillor Levitt. My understanding is that all votes now are recorded on the YouTube channel. Can I just get clarity on that? And if not, can we have this as a recorded?
If I understand Councillor Levitt correctly, he's referring to the recorded vote procedure under the Constitution, where the details of how members voted would be included in the decision sheet and the minutes, as opposed to simply on screens.
No problem. We can do that, Councillor Levitt. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I intend only to speak for the communities I'm familiar with, so this will be short and sweet. The bisection of Chesfield in these proposals is quite dramatic, though the communities of Great Ashby, Gravely and Wymondley are very distinct, with Gravely and the Wymondleys having probably a lot more in common with each other than either of them do with Great Ashby. So while it's quite a dramatic change, it's not one I think I object to. I also wanted to say how delighted I was to see that the anomaly towards the south of Great Ashby, or the mystery of the missing half cul-de-sac, has been identified and fixed in these proposals, particularly because that's something that many people have told me is nigh on impossible to do. I'm sure my counterpart in Chesfield and indeed my colleague from Weston and Sandon will agree with me on that point, and hope that ideally the parliamentary boundary, which follows the existing Chesfield boundary, will one day follow it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davies. Are there any other points of debate on recommendation 1? No. If there are no more, we will move on to open debate on recommendation 2. Of course, it's noted that Councillor Hoskins, you proposed an amendment to the Hitchin area, and Councillor Albert, you seconded that, but we'll move on to the open debate on recommendation 2. So would any member like to speak on recommendation 2? I am not receiving any indications from members. So if that is the case, I will then move on to debate on recommendation 3. So would any member like to speak on recommendation 3? Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I propose that this council adopts option B for Letchworth and not option A. I'm particularly concerned about the proposed boundaries for the southern wards in Letchworth, and see option B as the one that will most enable us to meet the 3 statutory requirements of the Boundary Commission. Option A seems focused only on making the numbers work, but at the expense of criteria 2 and 3, that wards should reflect community interests and enable effective and convenient government. My reasoning for this is that in the first instance, option A requires that the residents of the Crescent be divided from their natural community. And this isn't right when we have a viable alternative on the table. Whereas option B will resolve most of the current issues of the lordship divide and result in that being represented as a more coherent community. The most pressing concern, though, for option A is that we will be keeping Jackman's and Lordship estates together. We believe that this is wrong and breaches criteria 2 and 3. These communities aren't just separate and divided by the A505 with no real shared community facilities, but they are different and starkly different with deeply polarized needs. And the scenario is not dissimilar to the gulf in interests that we acknowledge for both rural and urban communities. The Jackman's estate is one of the most deprived in the district and contains a large amount of social housing and the challenges that go hand in hand with poverty. By comparison, the Lordship is one of the wealthiest in Letchworth. And the consequence for us in government is a need to serve 2 communities with vastly different policy priorities and very different casework. We're already seeing this in extremis at the cost of living crisis, which is resulting in the casework volumes increase coming from the Jackman's estate. Both communities need effective representation, and the residents of the Lordship have more in common with the communities of the Southwest and Jackman's with their neighbours in East. So keeping these 2 communities in the same ward clearly puts tension on representing their interests best. So for that, as I see it, option B is the one that will serve us best in ensuring that the numbers work, the community interests are represented, and that we can be effective as a local government supporting those residents. So for that reason, I propose that the council adopt Appendix C, option B in our submission on Letchworth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just be very brief. I happen to disagree with that. I think option A for Letchworth is the best option. I do acknowledge that neither is perfect, but on balance, option A is the better option in terms of communities. As you'll see from option B divides the Lordship in a zigzag straight through the middle, effectively, of the Lordship estate. It is better, although not ideal, to have 2 distinct communities together rather than one just halved straight through the middle. So it's, in my view, option A would be the better option of those 2, and I would like to say that that would be my proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Councillor Hone.
Chairman, just to comment on what Councillor Thomas said, where does that put me then as the County Councillor of Letchworth South, which is the 2 estates which she mentions of Lordship and Jackman's and other estates as well, of course. I suppose that discounts that theory that nobody can look after both those types of developments. Yes, they can, and they do today. That falls very much in my hands. Another comment about Letchworth, if I can, please. When we first saw the proposals coming in front of us, which was a presentation made to us using maps which we really struggled to understand, when we finally got to the stage where we could understand them, we first saw that the Grange was been split down the middle, which is surprising. And the new ward that was going to be called the Grange, in fact, did not have the road, the Grange Road in it, did not have Grange Community Centre in it, did not have Grange Baptist Church in it, except Methodist Church in it, etc. So it was patently obvious that when those proposals were made for Letchworth, they were based on numbers, not on communities. Grange being a classic example. Grange is a community, and it's recognised in later presentations. But with the first proposals put in front of us, it was patently obvious that nobody had, and it was admitted by some people, they never visited Letchworth to see the community and the way in which Letchworth Garden City has developed over the years. Letchworth Garden City from 1906 started with the centre and then had add-ons around the side for various reasons, various places, various times, including one from London, the LGC. So you had to recognise how Letchworth built up in order to put the wards together, and to do it based on numbers rather than on the communities, which is what we first saw, was an anathema for us, and that's why we had major problems with the first presentation that was put before us. Disappointing that, for example, it didn't go to area committees. It would have been a great idea to take each of the proposals to area committees, then we could have discussed it amongst Letchworth councillors, could discuss what's happening in Letchworth. That didn't happen. All that happened was we were presented with a fait accompli, which I have to say did not reflect the communities and did not reflect the interests that we represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hone. Again, just a gentle reminder, I'm keen that we base this debate on the recommendations that are in front of us and not necessarily the process that has got us to where we are, but the recommendations themselves, please. Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Chair. So I do understand the representations made by some of the councillors looking at option A as their preference. I would like to back option B as one of the representatives currently for South East, and I do accept what Councillor Hone has said in terms of representing all those areas currently at the county level, but at a district level, with the A505 currently still running down through the centre of the ward, it is very much two separate communities which currently sit aside from each other. By merging what is Jackman's with East, or parts of East as it is now, there is a much more coherent community there with more in terms of shared assets, and especially with the A505 as it is, they are actually joined. For those who don't know, the A505 essentially does act like the railway line does between North and South Letchworth as well, in the sense there are very few crossing points and there's very few natural areas where the two come together, East and West. So I would like to again push for option B to be selected for Letchworth.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Mantle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the figures, I think the figures rather undermine option A, because what you have got is one which is above the tolerance that's supposed to be there of 10%, and the figures I have in front of me in the report, which we're discussing, says that Letchworth West and Letchworth East between them are very much at the top end of the range. But what I would also like to point out is that the area of what is Letchworth East, south of Pixmoor Way and north of the Baldock Road, for members who don't know, that's basically the Crescent, and the houses, some of the houses in Pixmoor Way, also has the Pixmoor School in it, which is, if that isn't part of the community, I don't know what it is. And I think that a warding arrangement which divides a clear homogeneous community, which cannot sit as a single member ward because it's too big, and anyone who does the arithmetic will see that. So we've got to find some other solution, which is why I think that linking it across with the Jackman's estate, where there is quite a lot of cross communication and commonality, you might say. But I think that makes more sense than a sort of artificially carving up the Letchworth East Old Pixmoor area, which I think is very undesirable. It was done at the last review. It's clearly an unsatisfactory arrangement. I don't think we should be supporting perpetuating it. And that means then that if you bring that part into Letchworth East is too big to be a single member ward, therefore must be attached to another single member ward. And the only one that's really sensible is the Jackman's estate. The comment about the part of lordship, that of course is a relic from the last review when that was hived off into the old southeast ward. The division between southeast and southwest, if I remember rightly, still runs at the moment along Whitethorn Lane. So that isn't actually changing anything, but we're talking there about dividing up a housing estate, not a community, if I may suggest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mantle. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. Just on this debate, particularly with the one concerning Letchworth South East. At the moment, the Letchworth South East ward encompasses Jackman's estate, Jackman's Place, parts of Baldock Road, and the Lordship estate, and William Village, which nobody here has mentioned either, actually, as part of it. And it is a very diverse ward as it sits, and it is very different casework. I've been representative there since 2006. Majority of my casework does come from Jackman's area, but I also get a lot of casework, a different type of casework from the other parts of Letchworth as well. And actually, dividing wards up, because it makes, I just got the impression from the first speaker that your councillor needs to be specialised in that area. As a good councillor, you should be able to represent everybody on your community, no matter what part of that community comes from. We shouldn't be saying this is a poor part of the community, it deserves more. This is a rich part of the community, we shouldn't do as much here. Everybody deserves the same from an elected representative. We should bear that in mind. Yes, this is a numbers game. This is what it's all about. It's purely a numbers game is what this is all about at the moment. We try and divide it by community boundaries, natural community boundaries, or national or natural geographical boundaries. Actually, I don't really like either of these arrangements. I think there would be better arrangements. So I'm not going to support either of those, but I just wanted to make that point about a good councillor can represent anybody, no matter where they come from, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levitt. Councillor Bryant.
Thank you, Chair. As a Hitchin councillor looking from the outside, I've just took two queries. First of all, isn't lordship already split? And I can't see that the new split is straight down the middle. Could I have clarification, please?
Thank you, Councillor Bryant. That is a question, so I will pass to Mr. Beasley, please.
Thank you. I couldn't tell you exactly where the ward boundaries are at the moment. The current Letchworth members be better placed to do that. But the zigzag line has been referred to is the existing zigzag line on your maps there. That is the current ward boundary. So it's not a 50-50 split between communities here, but this is the best place that we can place the line to make it work numerically and to try to reflect the communities and ensure effective and convenient local government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beasley. Councillor Bryant, are you satisfied that that has answered your question? Thank you. Are there any other points that anybody wishes to make on recommendation 3? No. So here comes the complicated bit. Councillor Albert, during the debate on recommendation 1, you suggested that you may wish for the warding arrangements to be taken separately and split into the rural wards, Baldock, Hitchin and Royston. Are you making a proposal to do that?
Well, I'm seeking advice to you, Chair. Am I right in thinking that effectively that as of now is that if there is a vote against and people are unhappy about one particular section of this, they vote against this, but that actually affects all the 4 arrangements that are set out there. If that's what I'm being told, then I do think these should be separated out, as we have got for Letchworth.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. Yes, I believe that is the case, and therefore sensible to split them out if you wish to make a proposal.
Propose that these should be split out as 4 separate votes.
Okay, and do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Hoskins. Councillor Hoskins, thank you very much for seconding. We will now move into the debate on that particular amendment. However, Councillor Munster, you already had your indication, so point of order.
Chair, I just wanted to ask if it would be in order for me to ask Mr. Beasley, when he was employed by North Herts District Council, has he actually spent any time on the ground in the district whilst he's been currently doing?
Thank you, Councillor Munster. I don't think that's appropriate or related to the recommendations made today. But we are moving into the consideration of the proposal just made by Councillor Albert and seconded by Councillor Hoskins. Is there any debate on splitting recommendation 1 into its constituent parts? So therefore we would have one recommendation on the rural wards, another recommendation on Baldock, another recommendation on Hitchin, and another recommendation on Royston. If there, Councillor Strong.
Yes, it's more of a question, really. I'm not totally clear because the submission, as I understood it, was for the whole of the district. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Stupid phone. So, yeah, so the warding arrangements that we have before us is for the whole of the district. So my question, and it is just at this point a question, is if we're starting to just try and segment it out and look at one bit, it's not easy to do that because the impact of one bit not being liked might have ramifications on other bits that we do like. So it has to be, as I understood it when I was on the project board and sitting there through all the meetings, that it is the entirety of the proposal that we have to look at. Because if you suddenly say, oh, I don't like this ward, I think it should be a different ward, and you want to looking to make a change, and I have to say I'm not totally clear with the proposal, the amendment that Councillor Hoskins has put forward, because that can then change another ward. I think if members don't like it, then it's the entirety of the boundaries, then they should just vote or abstain against the whole proposal, not try and cherry pick bits out of it.
Thanks, Councillor Strong. I will double check that the answer that I'm about to give you is correct, but my understanding is an amendment was raised relating to a specific area in recommendation 1. Recommendation 2 and 3 were split prior to this meeting due to the fact that there were 2 separate options for Letchworth. Due to an amendment being raised specifically around Hitchin, if there is disagreement surrounding the decision over Hitchin, that could affect the rural wards, Baldock and Royston. But we want Councillor Hoskins wants to consider the alteration of the options for Hitchin specifically. So the reason for splitting it out is to ensure that we can come to an agreement on Hitchin, and then the other areas as well. But I'll just clarify that what I've just said is correct. With
Chair,
yeah, Jeanette.
sorry, I understood it, and correct, the proposer and the seconder would have to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that the proposal was to separate those areas out and deal with them separately. It will potentially have ramifications, yes, but that was the proposal and it was seconded, and that's what you're dealing with now.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense. I don't think we were proposing to look at just Hitchin first and then forget about the others.
No, yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you, Jeanette. Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Sorry, I made some notes about querying whether we needed to vote unanimously and then referencing back what had previously been discussed by group leaders at the project board about what we felt were non-contentious aspects and forms of words that we would need to attach should certain parts of this submission not be agreed by full council. Based on Jeanette's advice, I don't think we need to rehearse that, because I think if we do agree with the proposal that's been put forward by Councillor Albert, Mel and officers are adequately prepared to mitigate and deal with the consequences. We've already got documents drawn up, and equally I don't foresee reasonably that there will be substantive different outcomes if we take these individual areas separately. I'm also aware of the time, Chair, so maybe let's go on with it. Well said.
Thanks, Councillor Dennis Harburg. I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak on an important topic, but I cannot see anyone else indicating to speak. So we will therefore, as it's been proposed by Councillor Albert and seconded by Councillor Hoskins, move to the vote, please, Will, on the split. Councillor Levitt.
I did call for a recorded vote on all of these matters, please.
Sorry, Chair, could I just clarify something in relation to what Councillor Levitt has just said? If I understand correctly, this is a vote on whether to split up the first item into the constituent areas, in which case, Councillor Levitt, do you really want a recorded vote on whether to split it up into different elements? I appreciate you might want the recorded vote when you get to each element. So just some clarification, please.
Councillor Levitt, I'm happy for you to...
I did request a recorded vote on all matters to do with this item, please.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. We will therefore take a recorded vote.
Again, before we go into that, just to clarify to members, recorded votes under the Constitution are now recorded automatically by the computer, so it won't take any longer. I won't have to do a roll call. Votes are on. Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. We will now move on to the second amendment that was proposed by Councillor Hoskins. Due to the odd nature of what we have been doing, I would like to call for any other points that any members wish to raise. Yes. Yeah. So just to clarify, on the basis of the split, this amendment will now become a part of the recommendation relating to Hitchin, and the rural wards, Baldock and Royston are now recommendations 4, 5 and 6.
So do you call for a recommendation, a proposal for Hitchin?
So
Call for a proposal for Hitchin.
yeah, so instead of going straight to the amendment, then I will call a proposal for Hitchin as a whole as per the document. Do we not want to discuss the amendment first? I think we'll discuss the amendment first. We'll talk about the amendment first. Councillor Hoskins, I see you've got your name up. You did propose, but I'm happy because it's been some time for you to clarify if you had any additional points or to highlight some of the points you've already made to remind members of the amendment you.
That's precisely why my light went on. I thought after all this time you might seek some clarification. My amendment is to, I'm seeking for that to be a 2-member ward and for the boundary of between Highbury and Priory to be Queen Street and the main A602 Stevenage Road. In actual fact, it just restores the Highbury Priory boundary in the town centre to where it was some years ago. So that's it, really.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoskins. Just as a reminder, Councillor Albert did second this. So Councillor Mantle.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. We don't have any figures for the proposal. Does the proposer actually, can they supply the figures to say whether it complies with the tolerance that we're supposed to comply with? So I'm afraid I don't have the detailed Hitchin figures with me.
Thank you, Councillor Mantle. I will refer to Councillor Hoskins.
Yeah, I'm happy to confirm that. This was an option. Option 2 was one that was actually in the electoral review document that came through. We had the choice in that document of either going with option 1 or option 2, but the only one that's come along to full council is option 1. So what I'm saying is option 2, which was agreed under the electoral review document, the numbers are right under that. So I'm just seeking for that to be the preferred option.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoskins. Just due to the nature of that question, I will just seek clarification from Mr. Beasley, as I'm not disputing that Councillor Hoskins knows, but I just want it to be confirmed by Mr. Beasley so all members are satisfied that that is okay.
Thank you. Yes, a document was circulated to members of the project board who then shared it with local members with particular interest in that area, in this case Hitchin, and moving the boundary as discussed so that Hitchin Priory and Hitchin Highbury are both 2-member wards would result in electoral equality that is acceptable. So Priory would have 4,325 electors and a variance of -4%. And Highbury would have 4,823 with a variance of +7%. So that is within the 10% tolerance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beasley. Are there any other questions on, not questions, any points that anyone wishes to raise on this particular amendment? I'm not seeing any indication. So could we again, please, we'll move to a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. We will now move to each recommendation in turn as amended. So recommendation 1 will become the warding arrangements relating to the rural wards attached as Appendix A. Could I please have a proposer? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
I think that Steve wanted to do it, but I got in there quicker. So I'm happy to propose it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dennis Harburg. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jarvis.
No, I'm happy to second that.
Does anyone wish to speak on the proposal? Not seeing any indications. So again, Will, can I pass over to you for a recorded vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Recommendation 2 is the warding arrangements relating to Letchworth as... Did I not say that I would do Bullock 4, 5, and 6? Okay, that's fine. We will then write recommendation 2 as the warding arrangements relating to Baldock attached as Appendix A. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Willoughby.
I'd like to propose them.
Thank you very much. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Is there any debate? No. Then again, we will move to another recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. That motion is also carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Recommendation 3 will now become the warding arrangements relating to Hitchin attached as Appendix A as amended. Could I please have a proposer? Councillor Albert.
Happy to propose this recommendation as now amended.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. And a seconder, Councillor Hoskins.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate? No. So again, Will, please take us through a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Recommendation 4 will now become the warding arrangements relating to Royston attached as Appendix A. Can I please have a proposer? Councillor Brown.
Happy to propose that we accept as attached Appendix A.
Thank you very much. And a seconder? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Yep, happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate? Will, you know the score.
James is doing all the legwork. Thank you, Chair. Motion is carried.
Okay. Could I now call on a proposer for Letchworth? So what that means is I want someone to propose an option as attached as an appendix. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose option B for Letchworth.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. So to clarify, that would be a recommendation, a proposal that the warding arrangements relating to Letchworth as detailed in option B attached as Appendix C. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Dennis Harburg.
Yep, very happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other proposals? Councillor Prendergast.
Yeah, I would like to propose option A, please.
Thank you very much. And do I have a seconder?
Sorry, Chair, you've already received, have you not had the second for the option B? So you have to take that item and vote on it
Yeah, sorry, I was having flashbacks of outside bodies again. So we will therefore move on to the debate of the proposal that has been made, which is that the warding arrangements relating to Letchworth as detailed in option B attached as Appendix C. Clearly, we have already debated. So if you have already spoken, then you have already spoken on this particular, so recommendation 3. But is there any more debate from those who have not already spoken on recommendation 3? There is no one. So Councillor Allen, you can speak.
I was going to speak on the debate. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I do genuinely believe, as the chair of Letchworth Committee, this is the best option for Letchworth, and that is my opinion.
Thank you very much. Can we therefore move to the vote on the proposal that the warding arrangements relating to Letchworth as detailed in option B attached as Appendix C be accepted?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is not carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Do we have any more proposals? Councillor Derbyshire.
I would like to propose option A as set out in the report, which is Appendix B.
Thank you very much. Councillor Prendergast, you did already propose the motion, but that was not in order. That's my fault. So I am going to therefore call for a seconder. Councillor Prendergast, you're happy to second. Thank you. Again, I will call for any debate. We have had the debate on recommendation 2. So anyone who did not speak previously is welcome to raise any points on the proposal. So there is no one indicating to speak. So can we therefore go to the vote on the warding arrangements relating to Letchworth as detailed in option A attached as Appendix B be accepted?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Just prior to moving on to the next agenda item, I want to place on record my thanks for both Melanie Stimpson and Mr. Beasley and their respective teams. It is now 9:15. Would anybody like a break? I will take that as yes. So I will therefore adjourn the meeting temporarily and ask that people be back at 9:25. If I could ask everyone to return to their seats, please, and if anyone's still outside, can we grab them? Thank you very much, everyone. Can we confirm we are back on the live stream? We are back live on YouTube. Do not swear. So moving on to agenda item 9, referrals from other committees. May I just remind everybody that we are no longer operating under the rules where we have suspended the standing orders, and therefore the standing orders are all back in play. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. May I raise a point of order or raise my hands in apology?
You may raise a point of order, yes.
I must admit that during the previous item, I became briefly confused as to which votes applied to which areas. We amended the Hitchin boundaries and then took the vote on the rural boundaries. And I believed we were taking a vote on the Hitchin boundaries at the time, a mistake I only realised when we then took the vote on the Hitchin boundaries later. If it is at all possible to record my vote as a yes for the rural boundaries, that would be greatly appreciated, or at least record this point of order in the minutes that I voted incorrectly on that item.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Unfortunately, we can't change your recorded vote, but your point of order is noted and on the YouTube channel. So continuing with agenda item 9, we will move to item 9A, which is the referral from Cabinet of the 21st of June 2022 Revenue Budget Outturn 21-2022. May Councillor Albert please present.
Cheers. Thanks, Chair. I'm going to attempt to be fairly sort of brief on these three items. Page 111 refers to the sort of specific comments, and there is one decision for council about approving the net transfer from earmarked reserves. The full papers that were presented to finance detail the 172,000 of carry forward requests for specific activities that now take place in 22-23. That takes the total carry forward request up to 712,000. That in effect reduced the medium term impact on the general fund down to around an 800,000 underspend. I think it's worth sort of noting in the main papers that we've detailed the various impacts of COVID in 21-22 and the impact particularly around leisure and other reductions in income and increased costs left us with a gross impact of about 1.65 million. After deducting any grant funding and sales, that looks to an impact to be covered from the council's reserves of around 770,000. I think it's positive to mention. I think there's obviously our funding towards Stevenage leisure was less than forecast, and I think that's good to see that the leisure and our leisure facilities costs are recovering well, but there's still a way to go there. The table 9 in the main papers highlights the movement in specific reserves, and this is the movements that will need to be approved by council. The main movement relates to the line titled what was MHCLG, now the Department of Levelling Up and Housing Reserve. This held the funding provided to the council to provide business rates relief during COVID-19. There's still some residual funding that will need to be released in later years. and the special reserve is being released over time to reduce pressure on the general fund due to the current mismatch between spend and funding. Now, that revenue monitoring report does highlight that the movements to and from the reserves will need to be subject to finalising the collection fund accounting and the final position on business rate pooling gains. We're still waiting for all the information required for that, but do note it will reduce the transfer out of reserves from 8.123 million down to around 4.5 million. Let's say the difference all relates to that DHLUC reserve and the timing of the release of the Section 31 grants. But all the other reserves are unaffected. So although we don't have a final figure, I'm not looking to change the recommendation tonight, but I think it's worth pointing out to council that there will be likely to be a future adjustment to that transfer total. So for this evening, I'm sort of recommending to council that we do accept that net transfer from earmarked reserves as identified in table 9 of 8.123 million, but clearly we will need to further report back on that when we have some further detail, and move that recommendation, Chair, and obviously happy to pick up any questions, and obviously Mr. Cooper is available as well for any other specific questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hoskins.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate? I'm not seeing any indication, so could we therefore please move to the vote, Will?
Are we still voting?
Yeah. Just for the benefit of the tape, there was a little bit of a spillage in the council chamber. Councillor Bloxham, I'm satisfied that you were here for the entirety of the debate and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to rerun the vote, and hopefully none of the electronics have been destroyed. So could we go back to the vote again then, please, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion's carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Moving on to item 9B, referral from Cabinet 21st of June 2022, investment strategy, capital and treasury, end of year review 21-22. Councillor Ian Albert to present.
Again, Chair, there's the details set out on page 113 of the agenda. Again, I don't tend to go into too much sort of further detail than is there. I think it's worthwhile sort of particularly noting that the sale of surplus land has increased our reserves during the year. They now stand at 7.7 million. There was one small technical breach of the Treasury strategy, which we had reported previously. And Council continues to manage its surplus cash by prioritising security and liquidity before considering yield. And indeed, obviously, the full Appendix B sets out in more detail the Council's Treasury position during the year. Again, obviously, I'm happy to move the recommendations, which is obviously asking Council to approve the 21-22 Prudential and Treasury indicators, and that the Council notes the annual Treasury report for 21-22, and both of these have been considered by the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee at their last meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. So just to confirm, are you proposing the recommendations?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Tyler.
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Are there any points for debate? I'm not seeing any indication, so can we therefore please move to the vote, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Item 9C, referral from Cabinet on the same date as the other two. Annual report on risk management and quarterly risk management update. Councillor Albert.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. And I think it's worthwhile, obviously, again, on all these reports, thanking our finance team, Mr. Cooper and his team, for all of their work, and obviously the colleagues that deal with the risk management group as well. I think there's a lot of excellent work going on across the by council officers, and I certainly like to commend our staff for all of that activity, which makes sure that we have both secure budgets, as we mentioned in the previous reports, but obviously that we are carefully managing risk and assurance across the council. The report will be obviously the last report in this sort of format, as the council delivery plan format will be used from Q1. Our annual report on risk management, which covers business continuity, assurance and health and safety. And if you haven't had a chance to read it fully, I obviously urge colleagues to do that, and obviously urge colleagues, particularly from overview and scrutiny and to finance, audit and risk colleagues, that there obviously is a standing invite to come to the risk management group meetings, and obviously Mr. Cooper or I can advise you when those meetings take place. The report's obviously intended to provide assurance to the Cabinet and the Council that risk is being managed effectively, and I think that the report sets out in some detail how we're looking at risk management and the risk management toolkit for the future and some future activities. So commend the report and ask for Council to propose that Council notes the annual risk management report that's set out in the agenda.
Thank you very much, Councillor Albert. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tyler.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate on that? Not seeing any indication, so can we please move to the vote, Will?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Item 9D, referral from Finance, Audit and Risk, the 15th of June 2022. Finance, Audit and Risk Annual Report 2021 to 2022. Can I call on Councillor Hoskins, please, to present?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm bringing this to you as I had the interesting experience of chairing that committee for that year, and the report before Council is to demonstrate the role of finance, audit and risk. I would thank absolutely everybody from cross-party members who put in the effort on this in supporting the governance of the Council. Also, my thanks to Councillor Ian Albert, who was often there to provide the advice that we all needed, and to Ian Cooper, whose expertise I'm eternally grateful for. So the report before you is for the Council to note, and I would move that as a recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoskins. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Billing.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate on the report? No, then can we please go to the vote?
And that motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Moving on to agenda item 10, independent member of Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. Can I call on Councillor Hoskins to present, please?
Yeah, thanks. Me again, I'm afraid. This is as I was part of the panel that did the interviews for this. I think this is a hugely useful addition. I think the appointment of an independent member will provide the necessary continuity, advice and experience. And certainly I think in my year as chairman, I would have benefited for that John Cannon was an extremely good candidate, and I commend him to you. So my recommendation, which I'm proposing, is that John Cannon is appointed as the independent member for FAR committee, subject to the final administrative arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hoskins. Can I call a seconder? Councillor Billing?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you very much. Is there any debate? I'm again not seeing any indication. So can we please move to the vote on that recommendation?
And that motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will, and congratulations to Mr. Cannon. Agenda item 11, Constitutional Amendments Report. Can I please call upon Jeanette Thompson to present?
Thank you, Chair. I'll start by saying that due to some concerns that were raised with me by Councillor Brown, I've reviewed one of the recommendations for change to the Constitution that's set out in Appendix A. So this would be the appendices 1 and 2 to section 8, and that's set out in the documents that you should have on pages 128 to 129. And this relates to the proposal that if members of the public or members wish to register to speak, that they'd have to go solely through the mod.gov website option to do so. So I've taken on board the comments in relation to that. We had checked with mod.gov, I will say, in relation to the normal sort of accessibility, but it obviously did not cover off situations where someone would like to telephone and book that. So that in its entirety is therefore I'm proposing that it's coming out of the Appendix A. So other than that, I don't intend to go through the report unless I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to that. But in the normal way, if members wish to query or question anything else in Appendix A, or obviously propose any further amendments to that, then I'm happy to deal with any queries, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jeanette. I just wanted to clarify whether the bit you're taking out is just relating to the mod.gov website or whether you're removing the word before as well.
It relates to both, so all of the proposed amendments, so that includes that registration and the time. So it basically remains as you currently have. So there's no proposals to change those elements at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that clear? Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Chairman. That's just clarified something I was going to ask, but can I move on to another point that I would ask our officer and our leader of council to take up? It's something that's bothered me for a number of years concerning the way that the planning department works, in the sense that we allow members of the public the full 5 minutes and they have to share the time, and also parish councils and town councils are treated in the same manner. Obviously, at the chairman's discretion, they can have longer, depending what the item is. But also within the reports we get from planning, it's always logged the parish council objection or the town council's objection. It's a mystery to me how we treat members of parliament and county councillors as effectively members of the public, because if they put in an objection, we don't know about it as far as the planning committee is concerned, and it's not in the paperwork. And also, if they come along to speak to an item, and it's been like this for a good number of years, even when I was a county councillor, you can't talk, you're not recognised as an individual that's representing a huge body of people, and that's the reason you're standing in front of the council. You're treated just like a member of the public, and you have to share the 5 minutes. And I think At first, I thought this was a requirement across the country and planning law. But I've since noted that other authorities have a different policy of how they treat their MPs and county councillors. We're probably fortunate in the sense that a lot of our county councillors are also district councillors, so they can be member advocates and actually come along and be treated as a single individual and get the benefits of same. And I think the time has come that we really ought to think about changing our constitution. And so members of parliament and county councillors can be treated in the same manner that we are. Can I ask it to be considered?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hunter. Both the leader and executive member for planning are in the room and have heard and noted your point. And I'm sure if there are any more conversations that can be taken in conversation with them through emails or conversations outside of the meeting, but your point is noted. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. I had 2 points to raise. That's actually now gone down to one, because the first one was to raise an amendment to remove those very sections that Jeanette's just done, and thanks to Councillor Brown for bringing that up, because I couldn't agree with those at all, because the Constitution should aid the involvement of our communities and members in their decision making, not put obstacles in their way by making it more difficult. So very much appreciate that one. The second point was on page 130 on the agenda about the climate change, the reference to climate change that's in there. What 12.1.2 and 14.68b. At the beginning of this meeting, Chair, you referred to the climate change emergency and reminded us about the climate change emergency that the current administration declared at the start, which followed on from the Nottingham Agreement, which was signed by the previous Conservative administration, and the climate change strategy, which was introduced by the previous Conservative administration. You also the member of public raised thing about EV charging points. The first ones in the district were introduced by the Conservative administration. But what I do find odd in this little thing is the removal of the, and perhaps it's an explanation needed more than anything, the removal of the reference to the executive member for environment, leisure and green spaces, or whatever that's replaced with, the Nottingham Declaration on Climate Change and other green issues being removed as an executive responsibility. And I'm just wondering if that's
sorry,
the
I
intention.
better clarify that. No, we haven't removed the executive member's responsibility. It must be the way that this is drafted. I mean, reference to the Nottingham Declaration is possibly because we've moved on quite a lot in the sense of there's a lot more going on, and obviously we have our strategy and that sets out a lot of the wording, but no, we haven't removed that responsibility.
Thank you. I'm glad for that clarification. So I was a little bit concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. Is there any more point for debate or any more questions or queries that members would like to raise? I'm not seeing any indication, so therefore, can I get a proposer for the report with the appendix as amended? Please, Councillor Dennis Halbach.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Very happy to propose, and I've heard the points that were made by Councillor Levitt and Councillor Hone as well. I'll double check my notes actually, David, because I thought that it was the Labour and Lib Dem administration that passed the climate emergency declaration, because there was no urgent business at the meeting that should originally have been heard at, apparently. But I just wanted to clarify that. I'm very naughty. I do apologise.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis Harlow. Could I please get a seconder? Councillor Brown.
I'm very happy to second these proposals as amended.
Is there any debate on the proposal? No. In that case, can we please go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. That motion is carried.
Thank you very much, Will. Thank you very much, everybody. I call this meeting closed at 9:49. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.